Air conditioning is the only thing that can protect you from the brutal summer heat. If that is what you think, you are wrong. According to statistics, the U.S. recorded more than 2,300 deaths related to heat stroke in just 1 year. More importantly, as many as 80% of those cases were related to using air conditioning. If you are careless, the person lying in the hospital all summer could be you. Air conditioning may be the fastest way to cool down, but it can also be the most expensive, the least sustainable, and the most dangerous way. So, if you do not use air conditioning, what should you use? Let us go back to the past. In our grandparents' time and in many ancient civilizations, people knew how to fight the heat with materials that were safer, cheaper, and could be used for a lifetime. Today, I will introduce you to 5 materials that were once used to cool homes, but modern industry tried to wipe them out simply because they did not make much money. And that is not all. I will also share 3 things to keep in mind when using them, along with a cooling plan suited to each type of climate in the U.S. Watch today's video all the way through, and you will have a cooling strategy for your home that works effectively for at least 10 years. Today, when 88% of American households already have air conditioning, it is hard to imagine that there was a time when people had to live through summer without a single stream of artificial cold air. But that is exactly what people in the past went through for dozens, even hundreds of years. No air conditioning button to turn on, no compressors sitting out in the yard, no cold air flowing through every room. But they still survived those hot summers, and here is why. Before modern air conditioning, people used 5 very special materials to cool their homes: chill food, keep storage rooms cold, preserve beer, and even create more comfortable spaces in harsh climates. Most people today never think about them. But the interesting thing is that right now in your own home, you may already have a device that uses the same principle. I will reveal that to you in a moment. And what I realized is that even though these 5 materials have 5 different names, they all work based on 3 most basic principles. First, they can transfer heat well. That means they can pull heat out of the place you need to cool. Second, they can hold temperature well. They can make heat move more slowly or keep cold around longer. And third, they were actually used in the history of cooling in cold storage rooms, breweries, ice rinks, homes, in desert regions, and food preservation systems. Not only that, many of those principles can also be used in cycles: absorb, release, regenerate, then use again. Now let us move to the part we have been waiting for the most. What those 5 things actually are, how they were once used, and why almost no one talks about them anymore today. Right now, I will reveal the first name. Number 1. Terracotta. It would be a serious mistake not to include terracotta on this list. You could say this is the wonderful material my family has prioritized using for dozens of years. Now I will reveal to you why my family practically worships it like that. Terracotta is exactly what our grandparents used a long time ago. Water jars, clay pots, red bricks, earthen planters, roof tiles, and ventilation bricks. It is clay that has been fired hard, but inside it still has tiny pores. These pores can hold a little water, then let that water slowly evaporate. And when water evaporates, it carries heat away. Imagine you have just taken a shower and then stood in front of a fan. You feel cold not because the fan creates cold air, but because the water on your skin evaporates and pulls heat away from your body. Terracotta works the same way. It holds water in its tiny pores, then lets that water slowly evaporate. Air that passes over that surface will feel more comfortable. This is how I use terracotta at home, and it is much simpler than you might think. I use a few large terracotta pots, a few hollow red bricks, or a terracotta water jar placed somewhere shady where wind can pass through. On the porch, next to a window, near the air entry point, or in a patio corner. On hot, dry days, I lightly moisten the terracotta surface without letting water run all over the place. Then I let the wind do the rest. If there is a fan on the porch, I place the damp bricks or terracotta pots in front of the airflow, but I always keep water away from outlets and electrical cords. The airflow passing over the damp surface feels much gentler than air blowing straight across hot concrete. But not every state is suitable for using fired brick. Based on my personal observations, I realize this method works best in hot, dry climates like Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, West Texas, or inland California. There, dry air helps water evaporate strongly. But if you live in Florida, Louisiana, Houston, or along the Gulf Coast, damp terracotta indoors may only make the air feel more stuffy and increase the risk of mold. But do not worry, I will still have another method that suits you, and that material may be sitting in your storage room right now. Number 2. Salt bricks. If you are planning to renovate your home, there is one material that sounds almost crazy, but it once helped an entire fortress survive in the middle of the desert for hundreds of years: salt bricks. In the Siwa oasis in western Egypt, people built Shali Fortress in the 12th century using karshif, a mixture of salt, clay, sand, and salt-rich mud. Karshif is a mixture of salt crystals, clay, sand, and salt-rich mud mortar. People cut blocks of the material from areas near salt lakes, dried them under the sun, then stacked them into walls. When the mortar dried, the salt inside crystallized and bonded the blocks tightly together. In simple terms, the wall did not just have salt inside it. Over time, it almost became one giant crystallized block of salt. But the important question is, why would a salt wall help make a home more comfortable in the desert? The answer is that during the day, the outside of the wall takes the sunlight. The wall absorbs heat, but because it is thick and heavy, the heat has to move very slowly through each layer of material. The space inside does not heat up right away. By the time the heat starts moving deeper in, it is already late afternoon or night outside, and the desert air has cooled down. You can picture a day inside a salt house like this. In the morning, the wall has already released some of the heat from the day before, so the house starts out in a comfortable state. At noon, it is scorching hot outside, but the inside has not been heated up right away. In the afternoon, it may climb above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but indoors, the temperature rises more slowly. When night falls, the desert cools quickly and the wall slowly releases the remaining heat. It is like a giant thermal battery, charging with sunlight during the day, then slowly releasing it at night. Shali survived through hundreds of summers like that. This is not a laboratory model. This is a real-world test that lasted nearly 800 years. But I do not mean that just because it has that deep history, it has no weaknesses. The enemy of a salt house is water. In the desert, it is smart. In a rainy, humid place, it is an idea that is melting itself away. Salt also corrodes metal, damaging screws, hinges, metal pipes, and rebar. The modern world no longer uses salt bricks to cool homes, but it is very good at selling them as spa walls, sauna rooms, and glowing decorative partitions. Number 3. White Limewash. Have you ever seen your grandparents use white Limewash to coat walls? In suburban areas, this is very easy to come across. From fences, storage sheds, barns, tree bases, even old walls around the house, everything gets brushed with a bright white layer. At first, I also thought they did that just to make everything look cleaner, brighter, and newer. But no, that white lime layer does something far more important. It helps the house fight back against the heat. It sounds a lot like an April Fool's Day joke, until I looked into how it works, and the result amazed me. I will explain it to you right now. Its mechanism has two parts. The first is sunlight reflection. When sunlight hits a light-colored wall or roof, a large portion is bounced back out instead of turning into heat. The second is that a mineral surface like lime can release heat better, so it does not hold on to heat as stubbornly as many dark sealed surfaces do. The way I use it is not complicated either. I do not start by painting the entire house white. I walk around the house in the afternoon and look to see which wall gets hit hardest by the sun and which room inside is the hottest. Usually it is an exterior wall, a storage shed, a garage, or a yard area that gets long hours of sun. If the surface is brick, concrete, stone, stucco, or mineral plaster, then I consider using white lime wash. First, the dust, moss, cobwebs, and peeling layers have to be cleaned off. If the wall is leaking or has large cracks, I repair it first. Do not use lime wash to hide a wall's illness. Then I test a small patch. I lightly dampen the surface, then brush on a thin layer. I prefer several thin layers over one thick layer because it adheres more evenly and looks more natural. Once it dries, if the surface is brighter and does not peel, then I expand the area. With the roof, I am more careful. I do not just randomly coat every type of roof myself. If it is a metal roof, concrete roof, flat roof, or shed roof, I choose the right kind of white coating made for roofing. I do not block drainage gaps, I do not coat over leaking areas, and I do not climb onto the roof if it is not safe. White lime wash does not replace insulation or air conditioning, but it does one very practical thing. It reduces the amount of heat the house has to swallow every day. And sometimes, the smartest way to cool a home is not to create more cold, but to keep too much heat from getting in the first place. But this is still not the most interesting thing on today's list, so let us move on to the next name. Number 4. Vetiver grass. This is how Indians have cooled high-rise buildings without air conditioning for the past 3 centuries. In many poor villages in India in the past, air conditioning was far too much of a luxury. But the heat does not wait for anyone to have money. So they took what they already had around them, vetiver roots, water, and wind, then wove them into large screens and hung them in front of windows, doors, and porches. At first glance, you might think it just looks like a sunshade curtain, but no, it is a handmade air conditioner. The way it works is very simple. Vetiver roots are woven tightly together, then people moisten the screen with water. When hot wind blows through that layer of wet roots, the water starts to evaporate, and in order to evaporate, water has to take heat from the airflow. As a result, the breeze passing through the screen becomes gentler before it enters the house. What I like about this method is that it does not need a complicated system. You just need to hang the screen where wind can pass through, lightly moisten it with a spray bottle or a small sprayer, then let nature do the work. Do not hang it deep inside a sealed room, do not soak it so much that water runs onto the floor, and do not place it near an outlet or a fan motor. What is even more interesting is that this idea did not die in poor villages. It went out into the world in a more modern form. It is no longer necessarily vetiver grass, but it follows the same way of thinking, using a mesh-like facade to filter sunlight, adjust light, let the air breathe, and reduce the cooling load. The Times City area in Foshan uses a double-layer lattice brick facade to reduce heat transfer and cooling demand. Projects like the Nakara Hotel in France and Cordoba Hospital in Spain also use mesh-like facades to create a more comfortable environment for the people inside. Number 5. Compressed straw. The next material I want to introduce to you is compressed straw. But I am not talking about the kind of straw you have piled up out on the farm. I am talking about straw that has been dried, treated, pressed tightly into bales or panels, and then used as a layer of insulation for a home. It may sound rustic, but if it is done right, it can make the outside heat take a very long time to get inside. The mechanism of compressed straw is pretty simple. Inside each straw bale, there are countless tiny pockets of trapped air, and still air is a very good insulator. When straw is packed thickly, heat cannot pass through it as quickly as it can through sheet metal, a thin wall, or a hot roof. It is like putting a thick life jacket on the house to help block out 40-degree heat. That is why, in the old days, and even in some natural building projects today, people used compressed straw bales to make walls, tiny homes, cabins, bungalows, backyard studios, or storage sheds. The outside of the straw bales is usually covered with earth, lime plaster, or a suitable render. The straw in the middle handles the insulation. The outer plaster layer protects it from water, wind, fire, and insects. But there is one thing I have to make clear. A straw wall is not something you want to get wet. The straw inside the wall has to stay dry. If it stays damp for a long time, it can grow mold, rot, and fail very quickly. And if you want to use straw for evaporative cooling, use it as a separate pad for an outdoor area, a greenhouse, a barn, or a breezy porch. That pad is moistened, a fan pulls hot air through it, the water evaporates, and it takes heat out of the airflow. But that is a separate system. Do not confuse it with a compressed straw wall. If I were applying this at home, I would start with a storage shed, small cabin, or a secondary wall first. Use treated material, keep it raised above the ground, protect it well from rain, and seal it properly with the right technique. Loose straw is a flammable pile, but tightly compressed straw, wrapped with proper technique, is actually a very respectable insulation material. And that is also the name that closes out today's list. By this point, you can see one thing. These old materials are not useless at all. They have real principles behind them, they were really used, and some of those principles still appear in the cooling industry today. But if you do not use them the right way, they can become a disaster inside your home. That is something nobody wants to happen. So I will give you 3 things you need to avoid getting wrong when applying these materials at home. The first is water and humidity. Terracotta, Vetiver grass screens, and straw-style cooling pads all need water to evaporate and pull heat away. But if you use them in a sealed room without airflow, or you wet them too much, you can create mold, musty smells, slippery floors, and electrical hazards. Salt bricks in particular can also absorb moisture, sweat water, and corrode metal. The second is that they need the right conditions. Terracotta and grass screens need wind passing through. White limewash needs to be on a surface that gets hit by the sun. Salt bricks or heavy materials need time to release heat, especially at night. Put them in the wrong place, and the effect almost disappears. And finally, scale. These methods can cool a porch corner, an airflow path, a wall, or help a house heat up more slowly. But they do not turn the whole house into a cold room. Use these materials as a support layer so the house stays less hot and the air conditioner does not have to strain all day. After going through all 5 materials, this is how I would combine them to actually cool a real home. First, deal with the outside. If the roof, west-facing wall, garage, or storage shed gets hit by the sun all day, start with white limewash or a suitable light-colored coating. The goal is to stop the house from swallowing too much heat right from the beginning. Next, shade and soften the airflow. On the porch, patio, or a breezy window, you can use a vetiver grass screen or damp terracotta. Hang the screen where wind can pass through it, moisten it lightly, and use a tray to catch water. With terracotta, use pots, jars, or hollow bricks placed in the shade where there is airflow. Do not use it in a humid, sealed room. With compressed straw, I would only use it for suitable structures, like a shed, cabin, backyard studio, or secondary wall. It does not create cold air, but it insulates very well. Remember to keep the straw dry, raise it above the ground, and wrap it with the proper technique. As for salt bricks, they should only be used as thermal mass material in a dry, enclosed space, away from water and away from metal. Do not place them somewhere humid. If you are in a hot, dry region like Arizona, Nevada, or New Mexico, water-based evaporative methods will work better. If you are in a hot, humid region like Florida, Louisiana, or Houston, prioritize white limewash, shade, ventilation, and humidity reduction. The right plan is not to get rid of air conditioning, but to help the house stay less hot so the air conditioner does not have to strain all day. People have learned a lot from nature, from neighbors, from grandparents, and from those times when they had to fix their own homes, do their own gardening, and fight through summer on their own. But modern technology and convenient services have also made us used to buying quickly, using quickly, and then forgetting that we need to understand the principle behind it. So before trying any tip, study it carefully. I do not want your family to turn into a disaster just because a do-it-yourself tip sounds good. If you want to learn more about how we use simple tips to keep the home cooler, cleaner, with fewer insects, and more durable over time, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.